Hello and welcome to commentary for the fourth part of High Performance Imports V4, which is all about drifting in Kyushu. Unfortunately, my narrator Ben keeps calling it Kyushu. He couldn't quite get his head around Kyushu. Anyway, we'll start off with a bit of street drift. I met up with Daisuke. He was the guy who gave me a ride in his old Corolla down at Mitsui Mika in the last video, or maybe the one before that. I met up with him and he took me out to one of the more popular places for street drift way back then, which was near Mount Safuri or Safuriyama, which is south of Fukuoka, right on the border of Saga Prefecture. It's in the daytime, it's a really good place to take a nice photo, but at night time, pretty much no one goes there, so it's a nice deserted road in the middle of nowhere for drifting.
Saga is a small city in Kyushu, the southern island of Japan. In Kyushu, drift is the most popular form of motorsport, so naturally there are many places you can find people practicing. Even when it's raining, drifters head out to the popular winding roads at Safuriyama, near Saga. It's a long drive, so sometimes they get restless on the way there. There are 4 sections of road used for drift. The first is the easiest and most popular, but Daisuke and his buddies prefer more challenging corners.
Real classic image of Japan, this. Guys out in the middle of nowhere drifting at night. Unfortunately, it is really hard to film because it's just so dark. Being in a following car helps a little bit.
After trying the second section, they decided the third section might be better. It's just so dark up here, especially when it's clouded over.
By this stage, I actually had a camera mount. So I did have an in-car camera on that car, but unfortunately I think I still didn't have a really good wide-angle adapter, so it's not the best footage. Also, that particular camera wasn't great at night, unfortunately. And meanwhile, I was standing on the side of the road with an umbrella and my usual Sony camera.
Unfortunately, the rain is getting heavier, so it's very hard to control the more powerful cresta. Finally, the rain was just too heavy, so we headed home. After all, there was an official drift meeting on the very next day. The Sekiya Hill circuit is the most popular drift track in Kyushu. You can come and practice almost any day of the week, but serious meetings are once a fortnight. Some of the more serious cars arrive on trucks, but most competitors are using their daily driver. The most popular model is, naturally, the Nissan S13, like this 180SX from Taku Forklift. Taku is a workshop combined with a wrecking yard, so they do good business here. Wide rims are essential to look like a top drifter, so wide body kits are also very popular. Glossy paint is a secondary matter. Sometimes guards are flared by hand to provide just barely enough clearance. Front bumpers are usually held on with zip ties, so they won't damage the guards when they get torn off.
Sadly, Sekia Hills is one of many tracks in Japan that have disappeared. If you look at it on Google Maps now, you'll find it's covered in solar panels, just like Sendai, which is a real shame. It was a great drift track.
There's a drivers' meeting before the drift commences, but the rules are fairly vague. Just try not to kill each other, seems to be the main point. And grab your friend's ass if the tension is too much. The track is still wet from last night's rain, but 70 drift cars soon sweep away the water. Even on a wet track, some cars drift very close together. This S14 from Tyre Select had more power than most, which you can spot from the amount of tyre smoke. Team drift is
So from when you came onto the straight here, the whole straight is downhill into the big downhill left-hander, and it doesn't really flatten out until you get into the second corner, which is more than 90 degrees, I think. So you really need some rear grip, otherwise you're just going to spin before you make it the whole way through.
most impressive to watch, with up to 4 cars trying to match each other's line. Here's that fat RX-7. They're a popular drift car, but not as easy to control as an S13. Front-wheel drive cars are a different challenge altogether, but sooner or later, every driver messes it up.
That's a good example of what I was just saying. You make it through the first 2 corners, but if you haven't got enough grip by the time you get to the end, you're just going to spin. Shows the next 81 there. It's tough when somebody spins in front of you. It's really hard not to get off the power and unbalance the car, so you wind up spinning also.
To really appreciate what it's like, however, you need to get inside the car. This is Isho-san, one of the top drifters in Kyushu.
Actually, I do have the wide-angle adapter on the camera here. So this is sort of the start of when I began getting good in-car footage.
And there's Daisuke. We'll ride with him next.
You forget today how easy it is with a GoPro or some other kind of action camera to get good in-car footage. Back then, it really was a struggle. I had it was a Manfrotto brand, big, about a 5-inch suction cup that I put on the rear window, and it had a brace underneath it that you could adjust to push against the seat to stop the camera vibrating. And it was a pretty expensive thing back in the day, but it really made a big difference. All fun and games until the helmet goes on.
Unfortunately, Ishio always drives with the windows down, so there's not much we can do about the wind noise. Ishio Silvia has a 180 SX nose, so they call it a 1-veer. The SR20 engine has an S14 turbo, big intercooler and tuned RON. It's set up for maximum torque rather than outright power, so it's easy to get the rear wheel spinning. For most corners, just a flick of the steering wheel and a jab at the accelerator is enough to get the tail out. The handbrake is only used to help tighten the car's line when the fast corner becomes sharper.
It's also to stop the car straightening up towards the end of the corner.
Steering is important, but more critical is throttle control. Modulating the throttle helps keep a slight amount of grip at the rear end, so you don't spin right around. Notice that second and third are the only gears you need on this track.
It's actually pretty rare that you need anything but second and third.
The only problem with having so many cars on the track is sometimes you have to slow down because of a crashed car. Daisuke's Crazy Corolla is hard work to drift, with less torque and no power steering. Daisuke says he prefers a wet track just because the steering becomes lighter, so he was actually disappointed when the track dried out. As you can see, without the mid-range torque of an SR20 turbo, he really has to flick the car to get it drifting. This technique makes it much harder to avoid spinning.
Might be thinking, oh, it's got a supercharged 4AG. Surely the power's pretty good, but they really weren't that powerful, the motor. A lot less power than a standard SR20, for example.
Although it looks dangerous, drifting at a circuit is generally quite safe. The speed is rarely more than 80 km per hour, even though the tyres may be spinning at 130 km per hour. Once again, crash cars slow things down.
Yeah, that's it for that meeting at Sekia Hills. I did go there 2 other times. One of those wound up on Hard-Tuned Imports 2, and the other time on a later High Performance Imports video, so we'll get to that. So thanks for watching once again. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.